Heather, this is obviously, I call this whole thing Next with Char. Before we could chat a long way. Why don't you just introduce yourself and tell people kind of a little bit of your background and what you do now?
Heather Weerheim, Director of Business Development at Greiner Construction. I've been in the in the construction industry for 15 years, starting in an owner representation role for a landlord in the downtown market. So commercial real estate, I love everything about it. It just seemed like a good fit for me versus residential. I liked that people have construction budgets and maybe worked a little bit more in a professional setting. And I won't go into much more detail on that. But anyway, so my role has been primarily in construction management. As my career evolved, I always knew that for me, networking organizations and just creating this group, whether it was subcontractors or trade partners and clients, I just knew that the people aspect was so important. If I could create this community of great things could happen. And with that, it evolved into my role developed into a business development role at Greiner, which I was really pleased when they offered that position up to me. It's been a really good fit and a lot of fun. So
isn't that great when you can actually say, oh, it's a good fit and it's fun. Yay.
I know. Lucky me.
Yes. So lots of things have changed. Zoom has dominated our world, which is in a good way. One of the things that we noticed is I think a lot of things that people were talking about for a long time, the work from home model was going to work. And all of a sudden we were thrown into it. And now we're trying to say, okay, if we're reversing back out of that, how is that going to look? So I'm just curious to hear what you are hearing and maybe what you're hearing from your clients.
Mm-hmm. For information, Greiner's office has been open this entire time because of being deemed essential. And our work is very collaborative. And so at our office specifically, the expectation is that you come into the office, but we are a little more that hybrid model. The only rule is be accountable. Say that you're working from home, just let your teammates know. And so with that, obviously we're working with clients in this industry, or we're working with our clients that are corporate clients, brokers, and design firms. And what we're hearing is people are coming back to the office. The challenges with that is, fear and still issues with daycare and schools and COVID scares, even though things are starting to change and open up. But I was really happy to hear that people are expected to come back to the office sooner now, like July 1, where before I was hearing the fall. So I'm very excited, and it's going to be slow. I think it sounds like the integration of coming back to the office is going to be slow, as it should be, because a lot of people have been gone for a year. It's scary. It's different. Downtown has changed in ways that we never expected, and it's just important. We'll just have to take it slow and have people figure it out.
So are people, are they understanding that it needs to be slow? Or that it will be whether they want it to or not? Maybe that's the better question.
I guess my advice to the leaders of these offices or corporations is to be clear and concise on what the expectations are. If a hybrid model is okay, well then what does that mean? How many? Because I've heard people say the expectation is you're going to be in the office 3 days a week at least, and then you can't choose Monday or Friday to work from home. I heard someone say that too. So I thought that was kind of fascinating, because I have a tendency to work from home on Friday afternoons, or on Friday, all day Friday. So that was an interesting work requirement that I hadn't heard yet. So I guess from a leadership, be clear and concise on what your expectations are, and then from an employee standpoint, be accountable and be patient with your coworkers.
So, what do you see in terms of people and their projects? And I'm saying, do you see, some probably stop them, now they're starting them. Do you think they're taking less space? They're not being as, because they aren't going to have as many people around all the time. What are you seeing and hearing?
Yeah, I think definitely people are taking less space. I've that's a definite trend, and changing around their furniture needs. So sometimes I don't get, sometimes from the contractor's point of view, we might not be seeing as many of those deals, or how they're arranging their office, if they're changing needs. It's more of a furniture person that's seeing that. Although we are needed sometimes for power requirements on that. But I would say they're definitely changing up furniture to make people more comfortable in that open work environment, so they're spaced out. Definitely seeing pricing. They want budgets for air filters and ionization, HEPA filters, but not pulling the trigger on it quite yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but budgeting for it. So I think that's in the future for those that are prepping maybe for the fall comeback, of employees, shift employees.
And what about projects that are already going? And then all of a sudden they realize they have to be cleaner than ever before and have all this, can that be fitted in if it hasn't been part of the budget and part of the building process?
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to add on construction time and budget, I mean, yeah, of course you can make any changes. I think a good example of this is our project that I think most people know we're working on is Deluxe. They're moving their corporate headquarters from the suburbs to downtown, with move-in date, I believe, in the fall. They went about their project making minimal changes as far as their design pre-COVID to now, which I think is, and I think it'll work out just fine with the way they designed their scope. And I guess if there's a trend that I'm seeing right now, it's not so much coming from our corporate clients as much as I'm seeing from landlords that are asking. We're pricing out a lot of spec suites. Are you familiar with that term, Char? I would think so. Like suites, like
well, explain it anyway, because if people listen to it may not know that,
Yeah, spec suites. So that when it's building out an office space in hopes to attract a tenant that they're going to need that space or use that space. And the goal there is that a tenant will come, they'll sign a lease, and they can just move in right away. So it's instant cash flow to that building. However, there is obviously, a cost to do that. But again, it works out if you're able to attract that tenant, and then they don't have to go through the construction process there. And so we're seeing, I would say, of our bid invites right now, I mean, probably a quarter of them are spec suites, if not a little bit
Oh,
more.
really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of
Sounds like a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, an increase from what you've seen in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say. There's a few buildings that have had a lot of success doing it that way. Fifth Street Towers.
Oh,
I think, I mean, a lot of buildings downtown have vacancies and they need to be filled. So I think spec suites are a great opportunity to do that.
yeah, figure out, do I want to be downtown? How much space do I need to be downtown?
Mm-hmm. And then one more thing, sorry, Char, the hoteling spots. This is kind of similar to what I talked about before. I guess what we're seeing some of our corporate clients doing is hotel stations. So people will have to reserve their desk spot. And as they do this, use this hybrid model, or whatever the expectation is, they come 1 week in, 1 week off, work from home, back to the office. There's hoteling stations. So you wouldn't have your own desk assigned to you permanently.
Do you hear anything about how employees like that? You know, we're such pack rats, kind of as a, I mean, I think, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Where am I going to put all my stuff?
Yeah, I think, well, UHG, they had a model where they had lockers for people so they could put their coats and their purses in a locker that was lockable, and then they would go to their hoteling station. I and I think what happens too is that people, if they come into work a certain time, they end up at that same hoteling station.
Yeah.
They kind of maybe make it their own
Hmm.
in a way. But the feedback I've gotten is that it's definitely a cleaner work environment because you don't have the stuff on your desk to collect dust, and it makes it easy for the cleaning people at night to
Oh, interesting.
to clean the surfaces. So I think it's a positive, and people like that.
So I recently read an article, and this is one of my favorites, is that there are several employees that weren't going to come back unless they could bring their animals with them. And I know it sounds bizarre, but I have kids in California, and they've been doing this for forever, it seems, out there. And I thought, do you hear anybody asking that? What is the possibility? How would we make that work? Could it even be something?
Um, so in our office, it's we we do have people that bring in their dogs every once in a while, but it's rare. So either our president Hans has a couple German short hair pointers, and they have been in the office, and it definitely creates some excitement and some fun, and people love it. I have a black lab, Lulu, who was old, and she was pretty docile. So like she would just kind of mosey through the office. And actually I couldn't find her one day, and I she was in accounting watching my coworker Stephanie eat French fries. and and my coworker Stephanie loved it. She was happy to have Lulu there because she's just so kind and kind of just almost like a I don't know, just a something there to provide comfort, and so it was, and she was definitely soothing. And then a few of our coworkers, of course, got COVID puppies, and so they have come into the office for short stints because they're kind of unpredictable. Is it a permanent thing? Is it something that happens every week? Absolutely not. Maybe once a month. I think it could be too much to have that expectation that pets are allowed all the time.
Right. Either that or everybody's going to be building doggy daycares and animal daycares that are, but one of the things that we've done is even before COVID, we had created these employee engagement walls where it's real easy to change pictures out and figure out where everybody else. And I thought, we may see more of that so that people can say, okay, I can't bring my pet, but I can see my pet.
Mhm.
And it doesn't just have to be on my desk, but it's in a place where we can now talk. You can talk about Lulu, and somebody else can talk about Sammy, and it's just all of that. Because the other issue that I think it addresses, and I'd be interested in hearing from you too, is a lot of companies are saying our onboarding processes are so difficult because the new people don't know our culture, don't know who they really work with, don't get how we do things. Are you hearing those types of things?
Absolutely. I think that's going to be a huge driver for people to come back in the office, that culture will be missing if work from home is something that's permanent for any corporation. And I do love the idea of that personalization wall. I've seen it be utilized before, and actually someone mentioned to me, Heather, we need a pet wall. Like we love to talk about our pets, and that's that's why I truly think that the office is not dead and that people are going to be coming back. You have to. Our group, even in the pandemic, our space, we have a movable partition into our training room and our in our break room. And we opened up that movable partition and kept it open because people still wanted to engage and wanted to have lunch together and talk about our pets or talk about our projects. And actually right now the struggle is all about just material lead times and construction costs and stuff. So I love sitting in there because then I get a lot of information that I can share with you and whoever is willing to listen. But I just love that idea of personalizing an office that everyone feels inclusive of is a great idea. And plus everyone is going to be missing their pets because you mentioned the cats walking past the screen before in an earlier conversation, and we've had so much time with them. So
yeah, we did one. Oh, it was probably maybe even 6 months before we knew there was going to be a pandemic even. And from the time it first got up to the time that people were leaving the office, this one woman had 3 different photos up in her little slot. One was of her and her boyfriend, and then there was her and her fiance, and then it was their wedding. And I thought, what a wonderful way to see changes happening all the time in our lives and be able to convey that without having to parade around and say, oh, look at me, aren't I wonderful? It's just, it was so much fun to hear that it was being used in a way that it's supposed to be used. So, and on, after we're doing like 4 or 5 interviews, and then our last segment, we're going to do a tour of that particular office, which is downtown, so that people can see the things that we had done that without knowing it at that time address some of the very things that we are talking about. And I think one of the terms that's interesting, because you're talking about how you left that door open because everybody wanted to see who everybody was, is that whole residential thing.
yeah.
So are they going to look like your office? Is it going to look like your home? What, but I think what you are saying is right, that people want that connection and they want to be able to collaborate and they want to just talk about stuff, the things that connect us anyway. It isn't like, oh yeah, we finished that 4th floor. And
Yeah.
So
you brought up Residential. I wanted to tell you this story. There are some designers that they work for a small local firm here. Actually, I think they're a national firm, but they have a small branch here. Anyway, they've been working from home and been starting to come back to the office for some team meetings. And because the thing that they loved about working from home was like lighting a scented candle, being with their pet. And so their leader, she brought in scented candles for their team meetings. And I think they have them around the office. And I thought that was so funny. I mean, I don't think any property management company would approve of having a scented candle or lit.
And don't tell anybody that we're doing this.
Get the battery operated ones or whatever that flicker.
Yeah, there's a good idea. I love that.
Yeah. But I get it. That idea of just making office space have some of those gentle, subtle reminders of home, or I don't know, just a little more comforting.
Oh, definitely. And I think those are the things that when I listen to you that say take it slow, is that you might have to put up with a little bit of that in the beginning. Who knows if it lasts, but the comfort thing, when we've been through a year of never knowing what the next day was going to bring, nor did we know how long it was going to last. So now we can say, okay, I'm willing to come back, but maybe I need to bring my candle or my potted plant or my, you know what I mean? You don't know what that is, but I think that that's important.
Absolutely.
To integrate that flexibility. So if there was one thing that you could say to your clients about what you learned about this year and what you think that they should really think about for this as they are moving forward, what would that be?
I learned this past year definitely about patience and understanding, and so it's not so much about, I'm not going to talk about the option or how it's changed our office that we have a little more flexibility with work. But I think it's just be accountable to your team, like check in with them. Where's your head at? How are you doing? How can I be helpful? Maybe to change your mindset a little bit, to be not like I need to get this done and I got to do this and I got to do that, but maybe how can I help my coworker? How can I help you today? How can we get through this? And because it's not over. I mean, we're still all going to have some struggles as we emerge back into the office. So I think just have some compassion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe that's it. I was reading an article in the paper this weekend, the Times, about this very successful CEO. It's a woman who said she wants a more compassionate capitalism. Maybe, I think the thing that we will often forget in our goal-oriented society, I gotta get this done, this done, this done, is, oh yeah, and it's people that are going to help me get there. So I think that that's very true, that that's really very important. And I think employees are going to almost demand that of us, is say, okay, this needs to feel like we're a group of people working together. Do you think that?
I absolutely think that's the people are what is going to drive you to want that. People and that culture is what is going to drive you to want to come into the office and see people. So absolutely, Char.
Yep. Well, I thank you for your time. This has really been fun. It's always interesting to hear kind of what's going on from everybody's perspective, and some similar themes, but also everybody says something a little new that we hadn't thought about before. And I think one of the things that inspired me to do this was, it seems like we jump on the bandwagon of everybody's doing it this way, so that's what we're going to do. And I think if there's anything that we're going to know, is that one size does not fit all, and not to be afraid of being willing to. I always go, tap dance your way through it. Maybe this will work. Or you try
I love
that
that.
didn't work. Let's move this. So I think it's a lot of flexibility, like you said, and experimentation.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
And creating a space with pretty things. With
and creating a space with
plants
pretty
and
things. I think,
art
it's so funny, as you know,
will
I do the art
definitely
thing.
help that.
I've been teaching for years about the psychology of art and how motivating, and it's a return on investment, and how probably more than ever it's important that your employees are a part of that process, so that they know that you're really thinking about them. So all these things, it's like I said, we've been talking about stuff and talking about stuff, but all of a sudden we absolutely have to stop and think about it, really. How the design impacts, how does the layout impact, how does, all the things that we want to do impact the employee working experience, enhancing it and helping people be more productive.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
all good.